Welcome, my friends, to our first ever Q&A video here on the channel. So make sure to grab some popcorn, sit back. There were quite a few questions here on the Q&A video, if I can see. It's pretty balls deep, to say the least. So you guys can see we're going to be trying to get through as many of the questions as we can. And for anyone who wants to make sure to catch these in the future, I'm just going to be doing posts like maybe once a month or every couple months. I don't know how often we'll do this. It's just kind of ridiculous. It's just a fun off thing, right? So I'm going to be posting in the community section. And if you guys have questions that pertain to Warhammer gaming, live questions, of course, please avoid politics and things like that, because I had to actually delete quite a few of these because they may have been funny, right? But again, I'm going to be trying to avoid those type of topics in terms of videos and stuff. So yeah, we're just going to be going through these questions and answering. I'll try and get to all of them. Like I said, there's quite a few. It's pretty deep. And hey, yeah, grab some popcorn, get ready. It's like 100 degrees outside right now. So I'm probably going to start sweating over the course of the video. So no, it's not because I get tired speaking. Well, I mean, sometimes I do, but you guys get the picture. So yeah, it's really hot. So I'm going to be sweating profusely, which will be really fun. Great time for everyone involved. So firstly, let's begin with Michael Hobson. Oh, there's a read more. Okay, I better go. If you had a choice to be placed in either Old World, Warhammer, or 40k, which would you choose and why? Second part of the question, in said setting, like, who would I be, essentially, is what he's asking. Thirdly, according to the last two answered questions, how would you want to die? Gloriously, old age, part of end times shenanigans. Well, end times would probably, be a rough way to die, because you just, you know that your sacrifice is in vain if it's the end times, which is kind of a thing. It's yeah, you're gonna die, but it's all gonna well, I guess you wouldn't know that, right, if you were in that time period. But just me having that knowledge. But anyways, so if I had to choose, Warhammer 40k is really cool, and I mean, I like the vastness of Warhammer 40k. It would be really cool to be a deep space explorer and just because there's so much archaic ancient civilizations and technology, and that's one of the things about science fiction that always got to me is just exploring the unknown, which I find really interesting. But again, in 40k, statistically, you're probably just going to be have a meaningless death, and yeah, I mean, oftentimes the lifespan in the Warhammer 40,000 universe is pretty horrid. I remember reading somewhere that I think it was in Warhammer 40k where it's past a certain point in space, the known galaxy is just like Tyranids and just deep space monstrosity, scary stuff. So, but anyways, to answer your question more in more of a specific manner, I'd probably want to be a dwarf in Warhammer Fantasy, because dwarves have a pretty cool culture, a lot of brotherhood and camaraderie, and also, of course, hanging out in the breweries and stuff. But they also get to live long enough to experience life. Humans, obviously, and in that setting also have short lifespans, right? And they're often miserable and horrible, and they're fighting against chaos warriors. And granted, I wouldn't mind being in a warrior position, but I would like to be a dwarf firstly, so I could experience a long life. Elves live very long, dwarves are pretty long as well, but I think there'd be a nice middle ground. I'm not a huge fan of elves in general, but I'd like to be a dwarvish engineer. I think a warrior engineer type. So I could have a gyrocopter and just fly around the old world and just explore, and of course have my boomstick, and I don't know. I feel that'd be really cool. It satisfies the exploration thing that I'm kind of a fan of, and also dwarves are badass. So. Hopefully it answers your question. As far as gloriously, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a hard one, because it's easy to say oh, glorious, yeah, of course, when you're just talking about it, but in reality, I'd probably just want old age, just being a happy old dog. We haven't explored and fought many battles and survived, right? I think that's kind of a cool thing. So thank you, Michael Hobson, for the question. Next one, what is your most wanted race in Game 3? I want a Nurgle faction of Chaos. So I'd love there to be Chaos Warriors of Nurgle that has a combination of Nurgle Warriors plus Demons of Nurgle. I'd love to feel a great unclean one. So that one plus probably Chaos Dwarves would be the two I want, because I love the dwarf aesthetics, and the fact that Chaos Dwarves can bring these huge monstrous war machines and beasts, I think is super freaking badass. So hopefully that answers your question. A Gangster Bagel. Good stuff. And there might be a little bit of music in the background, so sorry about that. I live near musicians. So Son of Kiernan. What's your least favorite race to play in multiplayer, and what steps do you think CA could take to fix them? My least favorite race to play in multiplayer. Now that is just going to be a preferential thing, because I don't think they need to be changed that much, but I personally do not like playing Wood Elves very much. I just don't like playing Elvish factions in general. So, I mean, they're all in okay shape. I mean, they can compete at the highest level. They're powerful. They have good options. Way Watchers are insane. Dark Elves are super high tier. High Elves have Sisters of Avalorn. They have Nets. They have really good Focus Fire, pretty good Cav and Dragon Princes. So I don't think there's anything wrong with those particular races, but I just don't enjoy playing them. And why do you think 3 single entities character rules is important for multiplayer tournaments? So it creates, to answer this question, it creates good army variants. So this is something I've actually really kind of learned about playing Warhammer 40,000. So there's a lot of lists, and one of the main reasons why Imperial Knights and big, heavily armored units are a little bit tough to deal with with an all-comers list, if you're just showing up to a tournament and playing against them, is because they're also heavily armored and meaty that you'd have to build almost your entire army to contour around them to deal with such a threat. therein, if you're playing in like a tournament and some factions can spam these single entities, like, well, what if they just bring like 8 of them? Like, yeah, you're going to bring a couple anti-large units, you're going to bring like this and that, but like you're probably not going to be well prepared to deal with like a cheesy like build with like 10 freaking, this or that, or like 4 Mortis engines, whatever, right? So it's kind of hard from an all-comers perspective, and not all factions can spam single entities fairly. So it's a hard thing to bounce around. So I think the single entity rule is really good. And again, it just kind of creates more well-balanced lists, more balanced gameplay, and also makes for more dynamic battles that aren't going to just be like Imperial Knights. Like, people have adapted to the metagame and can deal with them in Warhammer 40,000, and they've been nerfed recently, as a matter of fact, because of that same problem. Like, people just bring them, and you might be playing like a list that's really good at killing hordes, but then you're just going to guaranteed lose. And that's kind of the same thing in Total War Warhammer. So hopefully that answers your question, my friend. King Adjazal, the man himself. What is your favorite aspect of Warhammer 40k? What makes it so heavy metal? Do you think you could translate to a Total War game? So my favorite aspect of Warhammer 40k is the grimdark element of it. One of my like biggest pet peeves is when I'm watching like sci-fi or even fantasy, and there's like you see something, I don't know. There's something like the happy fairy tale is like it's everywhere, right? It's popular. It's been done, but having a universe that's like grim, dark, and kind of hopeless makes like the small achievements that you see in these universes even more like legendary, right? I like the idea of like a grim, gritty battle, because when you do win or when you lose, there's like it's just more. There's more feeling to it. I mean, yeah, certain characters have like plot armor, right? Like, yeah, you're not going to see Rabute Gilliman like die, right? Because he's like the head of the Imperium now in Warhammer 40,000, but certain characters have plot armor, but for the most part, like, no one is really safe from the axe except like the really, really big main characters. But in general, like in general conflict, and also the fact that the vastness of the universe, like the space, and just having like the deep space, these unexplored areas, just kind of the ancient civilizations, like that's kind of the thing that is really cool about like Lovecraftian literature, is like these ancient civilizations that are just unfathomable for us. Unfathomable, that's a tricky one, but yeah, you get the picture. So I like the deep space element of it, like the unknown, the grimdark element. I like that you're not going to get like some, oh yeah, anyways, one of my big pet peeves is like in TV shows and things like that, when you see a character like that, God, never mind, I probably should, yeah, I'm trying to think of how to articulate that. Like, if you get like some, I don't know, like Care Berry type character who can just like kick the shit out of everyone in like a TV show, and it's like, oh, they couldn't actually like do that. It's only because like this universe is just like trying to cater to that person. But like in Warhammer, it's like, no, like everyone's gonna have a hard time. It's grim, it's brutal, it's grinding. I think that's cool. Anyways, yeah, that's what makes it heavy metal too as well, I think. Do you think 40k could ever translate into a Total War game? Oh yeah, I really do. I know a lot of people think that like it would be hard because of squad-based combat, but it's not. Like, it's not that hard. You have like aspiring champions, you have like salamander hunting packs, which could easily be like a devastator squad or something, right? You just like take off their lower their speed, and like it's super doable. And I think that considering the relationship that Creative Assembly has with Games Workshop, I think it's something that we will potentially see someday. Like, I would like to. Like, why wouldn't they? Total War Warhammer did very well. Warhammer 40,000 is an even more popular IP. It's going to pull in a bigger audience to the community. So I think they should, and I hope they do. What's going on with ECL? To answer your question, there was quite a few questions about this, the next two, so I'll answer them together. The ECL I actually had earlier this morning, so it was a couple hours ago. But basically, I was having internet issues, and there was a squirrel who had been chewing on the internet cable to the back of my house. I shit you not. It could have been a Skaven, I don't know, but there was a squirrel that chewed our cables and basically slowed our internet speed, which is ridiculous. They had to come patch it up, but it's all good now. What would you consider to be the most underrated unit and or lord in Total War Warhammer? Also, what kind of games do you enjoy besides strategy games? Okay. The most underrated unit and or lord. Man, that is a tough question with so many factions, but I don't know if I can give you the most without doing a little bit of like deep thought and research, which would take quite some time, but I'll find someone who I think is underrated. For example, I think that Aranessa Assault Spite on the Vampire Coast is super underrated because of how good Noctilus and what's his name, and Luther Harkin are, because she gives all nearby units bonus first large. That's super powerful, especially for a defensive gunline faction. And on top of that, she has a snare, she has anti-large, armor piercing, like good combat stats, like a damage debuff ability. Like, she's a beast. So I think that's, hopefully giving you an answer there. And as far as strategy games, I mostly play strategy games. I used to be a diehard World of Warcraft player. I played World of Warcraft. Warcraft 3 was like my first love, but again, that's a strategy game. So Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. So yeah, aside from strategy games, tabletop gaming, Warhammer 40,000 is huge. I play in a competitive league, and I've been going to major tournaments lately. And I also am a huge Magic the Gathering player. Magic the Gathering is like one of my favorite jams. That's really good. So honestly, aside from that, like, I play Heroes of Might and Magic 3 with Anna. We play chess. Anna and I, my wife and I, we play chess almost every day. We play Scrabble. I mean, honestly, just all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I love gaming. But again, I'm limited now because I have these wrist problems that you guys are, I'm sure, aware of. So I can't play as much as I used to. But I used to play Rust. I used to have a blast in Rust, just like building these fortresses and yeah, all kinds of stuff. Again, ECL, we answered that question earlier. We ever do another stream where the audience gets to choose what race competitors play? Yeah, I'll do that sometime for sure. I think when like there's a big new batch of new races and new content to play, perhaps in Warhammer 3, that would be a good time for that. When will we see a 40k battle report against Italian Spartacus? It's on him, really. I've mentioned many times that I'm ready to do it and have invited him, but I think he wants to paint his army first, or maybe he's just a little bit busy. But someday, hopefully, because we've played a couple games together, we always have a blast. Spartacus is an awesome guy, so I would love to get that done as soon as possible. What are some of your favorite units, or favorite units strictly from a fanatic standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint? Okay, so my favorite unit to use, one of my favorite units from like a, I wouldn't say as much a competitive, well, they are really competitive, but I love Thunderers from the Dwarves. There's nothing quite as satisfying as seeing the Dwarves just like line up their rifles and like huge volley fire. It's just so badass. Favorite units from a gameplay standpoint, Hound units. So even though it's like a very underrated unit, it's much like if you're playing Warhammer 40k or like, Magic the Gathering, your low drops and your mana is going to be very important, much like a Nurgling or something to hold an objective. Warhound units in general, or skirmisher cav that are just melee skirmisher cav, are so good for pressuring your opponent, controlling the battlefield, getting into the back line. And like that's really what separates like good players from like average players, is people who can really manage those type of units very efficiently, because it puts so much stress on your opponent that if they can't match your micro, you're gonna be good. So Hound units, I would say. But Dwarf, it's in terms of thematics, Thunderers probably. So Matthew Chamiki says, who would win? Tyrion. Oh, Tyrion. Tyrion would take him out. Come on, get that. Lubu can't even beat the Shu-Chu from freaking Dynasty Warriors or Three Kingdoms. So Tyrion would give him the business. As much as I hate to root for an elf, I got to stand by my boy Tyrion here. So we're gonna go for him. What is your favorite part of content creation? Honestly, interacting with you guys is probably my favorite elements of it. That's why I like live streaming so much. And if I could, if my health would allow it, my hands, it's such a, I have an interesting story about my hands too. I'll tell you in just a second. My favorite part of content creation, yeah, it's interacting with the community. Like it's really cool having a community of people who are interested in the same thing. And that's one of the biggest things you lose when you graduate from college and like high school. Is that like you most of your friends drift apart. Those people that you used to game with or go work out with or play sports with, it kind of like becomes a void in your life. So having a community of people who are interested in the same thing that I can have discussions with, that I can like laugh and play games with, is probably the richest part of content creation. And obviously in terms of, aside from just the general lifestyle aesthetics, being able to just, hopefully you guys can't hear that bass over there. Goddamn, that's really loud. Is content creation. Yeah, it's just like the lifestyle, because I was working 70 or 80 hours a week as a athletic director, and it was really just destruction on my life. And granted, it was fun and I was fit and healthy and everything, and so it was cool. But yeah, the lifestyle is really good and it allows me to spend a lot of time with my wife at home, which is great. I saw that you streamed ECL, but you did not get to see it live. Yeah. So basically, this gentleman's, we had an issue. I tried to stream, sent out a notification. It's up now, so you can see it, Christopher. So thank you for the question. The Gotrek and Felix Flash tourneys, I basically stopped doing those because generally I can only stream like once on a weekend, because on the other day I take a day off and try and like recover a little bit. So honestly, I prefer the Eternal Challenger League format, and one-on-one I feel like is a more competitive experience, and I like to focus on that. So I basically, while the Eternal Challenger Leagues are active, I like to focus on those and the 1v1. Whereas in the off season and things like that, between content patches, I will do tournaments that are a little bit more exploratory, like Gotrek and Felix Flash tournaments and things like that. Can you make a permanent Discord? Yeah, I got to update the Discord link. I've changed it a couple times. I think I have to talk to Italian Spartacus, because I think he has something set up in our Discord channel that like makes all links invalid after a couple days, just so it doesn't like, they don't like saturate everywhere. But I'll have to talk to him. I'll take care of it. Thank you, man. Who let the dogs out? I mean, I did this morning. I let the dogs out. Usually like at like 8 or 9, like Anna and I wake up usually around like 8 o'clock or give or take. And the dogs are usually, clawing and barking at the doors to be let out. So it was me today who let the dogs out. My hand, it's actually unfortunately getting a little bit worse. It comes and goes in like tides. So yeah, to answer your question earlier about the hand thing, yeah, it's getting a little bit worse. It depends on how much painting I do in Warhammer 40k as well as gaming in one day. So yeah, basically I've been going to a hand doctor, and they couldn't quite figure out what was wrong with it, because essentially, and some of you guys, maybe there's some medical professionals here, I have, here's how my hand problem started. It was 2011. I was doing pull-ups with a weight vest, and I had a 50-pound weight vest on. I was doing pull-ups. I used to be very fit, but not anymore. And I had like a pop like right here. So it was right here in this area, like in the bicep. and like where it attaches to the shoulder. And I was like, oh, I strained it. Let's give it a couple months and rest, whatever. But a week later, my hand problem came, like out of the blue. And I couldn't even grab bottles. So I've always felt there's a strong correlation between some injury in my bicep attachment, shoulder, like somewhere in the pectoralis area, and my hand pain. And whenever I like aggravate my bicep, my right bicep, which is the one I injured really bad, it's still bad to this day. My hand hurts more. So my hand doctor couldn't figure anything out. She's just like, I got nothing for you. So I have to go see a shoulder specialist, and there's all kinds of stuff. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys have had a similar experience. Major Moolah, your top 3 and bottom heroes in multiplayer. The bottom heroes are just game 1 Footlords. Grimgor, I mean, Sigvald. Sigvald's playable. He's playable because at least he heals himself, and he's really, really cheap. Yeah, game 3, Grimgor probably, Helman Gorst. I don't know. Like, yeah, those game 1 Footlords would be... I mean, top 3 is going to be like you characters like... And are you talking about legendary lords or just heroes? I think he means heroes. So Major Moolah, if you mean heroes, paladins are really good. Any of those type of characters like Tomb Princes that give Guardian and have Tomb Strike are really, really good. I'd have to like do research on it from like a more broad standpoint, but in general, like Guardian type characters are really good. Other heroes that are really solid. Paladins are really good. Tomb Princes are really good because they bring anti-large to the table and also protect your characters. Lord Croak is obviously probably one of the best heroes in the game because he's not a legendary lord. He's actually a hero. So yeah, in game 1 Footlords, they need to have... If you're going to be like slow and kind of clunky and easy to outmaneuver, you need to have an ability that makes you more impactful. So Sigvald should have like Slaaneash's Frenzy, where like all nearby troops are going to a Blight Flag and he's Frenzy, right? And they can start attacking everything and just get a buff. You know, Grimgor needs to have something that like an activatable strike that just hits super hard and makes him actually fearsome once you do attack him. I think they just need abilities that really can be super impactful, like bound abilities, like Grombrindle. It's the right direction. Like the Flash Bomb is good. It's not quite good enough to make him like a super competitive pick, but it makes him viable, at least in some matchups. So Grimgor and like those type of characters need abilities like that. Like the Red Ruin on Ungrim is like the right direction, but again, it's not a good enough ability. It's not that good at all, actually. But yeah, they need stuff like that, I think, to make them better. Favorite Warhammer monster? Oh man, that is a hard one, Zach. Warhammer monster. God damn. Probably like some Lizardman, the Dread Saurian, like, or one of those things. Are as far as Total War Warhammer, or any settings you're saying. Oh, even in Warhammer. Oh, okay. Well, technically Mortarion counts as a monster in Warhammer 40k, so he's probably my favorite in Warhammer 40,000. Like he's literally this giant behemoth of a Mothra beast. But yeah, probably like some Lizardman creature, like a Carnosaur, like a Dread Saurian, which is like the huge one, I would say. Jeff Robbins says, would you be willing to try something like a Throwback Thursday, where once a week you play older Total War games? Oh yeah, for sure. I'd be down. I'd probably rather play like other old games because we get enough Total War with Warhammer. I think it'd be more interesting to see. And I prefer multiplayer, so going back and playing multiplayer in those games that weren't like as good for multiplayer might not be the best. But on Thursdays or like any day of the week, I'd love to do Warcraft 3 and games like that. And as a matter of fact, starting when Reforged comes out for Warcraft 3 Reforged, I'm going to be hitting that hard. So you guys will see like 2 or 3 videos of that a week. So, and streams. Which Total War game do you enjoy playing the most? Warhammer, for sure. Peter, to answer your question. Do you think Total War Warhammer multiplayer 2 is dying? No, I don't think so. It has a pretty active multiplayer community. It's still obviously more niche than the campaign gameplay. And when there are downturns in content, so the Prophet of the Warlock came out and then there's a bit of a drought until whenever the next content patch comes out, it always like is an ebb and flow. Because it's not like... I mean, it is supported by Creative Assembly. You know, obviously we have Everchosens and things like this, but it doesn't have like a huge esports scene with like a lot of money in it. So those type of games, considering those variables, though, it still does very well for itself. But I do think that it's just in a downturn right now, just simply because of, you know, when new content comes out, it's up for a while and down. It's a natural cycle. When Warhammer 3 comes out, eventually it's going to be up again. And then who knows? Well, depending on what they do in that game, that'll affect that. But no, I don't think it's dying at all. There's a very active community. I'm in several Discords that are very active and people are playing all the day. And you can go into multiplayer and see not hundreds, but a lot of lobbies compared to other titles. So I will do Blood Bowl someday again, the Kindred Blades, to answer your question. I will be doing Blood Bowl 3, I think, just got announced. So when that comes out, I'll probably hit it again, for sure. It was just kind of the reason I stopped playing Blood Bowl before is because at that point, my hands were getting really bad, like way worse than they are now. And I had to kind of like choose, like, do I want to like play a 2-hour Blood Bowl game or do I want to work on Total War Warhammer content? So that was the only reason. Otherwise, I would keep playing to this day. Have you ever considered doing a series where your viewers decide on your composition use for the matches? Yeah, I think... Gretch, to answer your question, is that looks like the Overwatch character's face just like scrunched there. Oh, what's his name? Hanzo, yes. I used to play Overwatch a little bit too. So play TK, use Arcane, yeah. I mean, I think something like this would be fun, and that's kind of something when I used to play more streams and myself playing. People would kind of decide my compositions or at least characters and lords. But yeah, I'll do a stream like that. I think that'd be fun, where like people can decide every game, or we have like some sort of a. I mean, obviously, if it just becomes an auto gen and people just pick random shit, yeah, I think we'll do something like that. Though. Thank you for the question. All right, this is a balls deep one, guys. Let me see. So, screw it. We're going in deep, boys. What are you going to do after Total War Warhammer series runs its life cycle? It's a good question. I don't know. Well, I feel like Creative Assembly is going to be doing Total War for a long time, right? I mean, they have been for years, and I think that's going to be their direction. So I think I'll be covering Total War Warhammer, or Total War. I mean, after Total War Warhammer 3, I'll continue to cover Total War titles pretty aggressively, whether it be, I'd like to focus more on multiplayer, but again, if they're more campaign-focused game, I'll still cover them to an extent. But basically, any major RTS or strategy titles that do come out, I would cover those as well. So if they released, let's say they do like a really cool Warcraft 4, or which will probably never happen, but I don't know, yeah, if they big RTS titles that have like a decent audience, I would cover those as well. But yeah, I want to stay within Total War because I love the Total War series. So Vincent says, do you play 40k demons? Would you play Sigmar? Personally, I found the story of Sigmar so unrelatable that despite having a large demon army, I stick to 40k. Yeah, especially being a hardcore Warhammer Fantasy fan now from this game series, obviously, I'm not as allured to Age of Sigmar. So if I play Age of Sigmar, I'll play Skaven probably, because they don't have the true dwarves anymore. They're not supported. They're just kind of like an index unit, basically. Index army, not very good. It's a shame. I would play dwarves, but I would probably play Skaven because they're still supported and still have like. And you can play Thanquil actually with like Rat Ogres. Like the army's the exact same as Fantasy basically, which is great. So I would play Skaven. But do I play 40k Demons? I play Death Guard, Chaos Space Marines, and Thousand Suns. Typically, I mix in Demon Princes within my Death Guard army, but I don't have a Demon detachment that I run separately. So I play Death Guard primarily, and I mix in Thousand Suns for psychic support sometimes, as well as Chaos Space Marines for some firepower. So that's typically how I play, Vincent. Thanks for the question. Where do you personally rank Skaven, Vampires, Beastmen, Dark Elves with the multiplayer meta in relation to other factions? Also, do you agree that Sigvald is most fabulous? All right, Titanic Tuna, to answer your question, Skaven are a good faction. I think they're on the higher echelon. They certainly got hit with a nerf, but again, they have a lot of options now. I think Skaven are a very competitive faction, as do I with Beastmen or Vampirates. I think Beastmen are in a harder spot now. I think Beastmen are mid to lower of the pack, but they're still competitive for sure, but just super micro-intensive. Like you have to be really on point with Beastmen because they're a bit of a finesse faction, I would say. The nerf to Manticore summons like really was hit them pretty hard, as well as just summons in general, like losing the Chaos Spawn from Worker. They're weaker now too, plus Manticores. And Cygor summons. That was something that you saw in a lot of tournament plays for Cygor summons. So the nerf to summons really lowered Beastmen from like a pretty like a good faction to like a weaker one. Dark Elves are top tier. They're all really good factions. Skaven, Vampires, Dark Elves, I think are top tier factions. Beastmen are mid to lower tier. Also, do you agree that Sigvald's pretty fabulous for sure, but he doesn't have like a beard ornament like like Cetra or like Noctilus. They got those beard ornaments. They got like the bling. Sigvald's kind of just like vanilla, but I've never been a huge Slanesh fan anyways. But yeah. Coke or Pepsi? God, I had soda for the first time when I went out to Poland like in like 10 years. I like when I was in my early 20s, I stopped like drinking soda. Like I just stopped. And I had it again in Poland when I was like 28. I'm 30 now. So yeah. Dude, I don't know. I can't even like my mind can't even fathom the difference. So Beats, I'm sorry. I don't know. If I just had to choose based on like aesthetics, I feel like Pepsi's like a little bit more like fizzy. I go, I don't know. If I just had them in front of me right now, I'd probably just choose Pepsi, I guess. Yeah. All right. Ben Davis says, hey, Turin, given how common it is to see a unit running around 60% of its models and a tiny sliver of HP on its bar, yeah. Do you have any insight into how the game calculates how much unit HP is lost to attack versus? Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Versus how many full models are killed. So if you have like a row of units fighting, and I think this is how it works, I could be wrong, I've never tested it, but let's say you have like Greatswords fighting White Lions, for example. Well, a Greatsword model is going to swing at a particular model within the White Lions, right? So that model will then lose the HP. So I think that's how it works, but man, I really don't know. That is a great question. I don't know if it's terribly pertinent as it pertains to tactics, but that's a good question. I really don't know. And I don't know if anyone's done any testing. So if anyone watching this video knows, please let me know. Dude, I was about to like just be like, get all hyped. Dead soup. I love teriyaki, dude. Teriyaki is so goddamn good. I think it has to be one of my favorite sauces. Like, although that's not true. Lady Turn makes a sauce because she makes this a tilapia dish that is so good. And she gets like olives, lemon, and like and parsley and like mixes it with this like sauce. These like Kalamata olives, and she makes this like sauce on the top. And dude, it's better than teriyaki. It is so good. Like she could put it on anything, and I would just feast because it's so good. But yeah, teriyaki's in the top echelon. And I think the Empire is a good faction. I think Empire is a little bit harder to play, but I think they can compete with anyone. I don't think they need too many changes. They have a Death Wizard now. Karl Franz is a great sniper lord. Boris is a good option. Gelt's a bit of a meme, but he still can be okay. I think Empire's in good shape. I don't think they need to be changed too much. I mean, I think, and I don't know if you're referring to campaign or multiplayer, but in multiplayer, I'm quite happy with Empire. Since customization and modding is a big part of miniature war gaming, don't you think there should be a support rather than restriction for modding in the Total War Warhammer series? It's a modding. You have to also understand, and I don't know if this is the case, but when it pertains to modding something that is a branded intellectual property outside of your gaming company, like, because the issue with modding Total War, I'm sure, I would guess that Games Workshop probably has it in their agreement with Creative Assembly, like that you can't like mod to the extreme with these things, like and mod them into other universes and stuff. So I have a feeling it's to protect the intellectual property. That's just my guess, but yeah, modding's always been cool. Like I've enjoyed quite a few mods in Total War Warhammer, like in Game 1 especially, for like when they added like Chaos Dwarves and had like the Chaos Dwarf mod. It was really cool. Tabletop strategy games. I started playing Total War or Warhammer 40k about a year and a half ago. And before that, I just played Magic the Gathering mostly. I hadn't played any tabletop strategy games before then. I played Dungeons and Dragons quite a bit in college, and I also played that as a kid. So yeah, mostly that. Magic was my big thing in terms of like tabletop though for a long time. Andre Musini says, "Hey Turin, love your videos. What do you think about the division into fantasy Total War and historic Total War? I mean, it's great because everyone can play what they like the most. I think it's a good thing. Andre. More is better. I mean, yeah, obviously when you split the amount of effort, you're going to get less of one, but I think it's cool. Like, I wouldn't have gotten back into Total War Warhammer and became a YouTuber without Total War Warhammer. Like, the fantasy element is what pulled me in. I had been playing Shogun too, but, you know, the new Rome game didn't really call to me and things like that, but I'm sure a lot of people did. I think it's just good. I think it's healthy. I support the multiplayer community, or not, I support the fantasy community and historical. It's great. It's good. Now we have 3 Kingdoms. So 3 Kingdoms is actually quite a fun game. So, yeah. Which of these settings do you think would be your favorite Warhammer 3? Oh, okay. So he's asking which is more likely. I don't think we're going to see Age of Sigmar for a long time, if at all. I mean, maybe someday down the road, that could be something they do. I think that Warhammer 40k is fairly probable. I mean, I don't know. I'd hope so. They have a good relationship with Games Workshop, and it kind of like, when Warhammer 3 happens, like, rather than acquiring the rights to Warcraft from Blizzard, or Lord of the Rings from the Tolkien estate, or The Witcher from its respective owners, or Game of Thrones from Martin, right? I feel like it's easier just to work with someone you already have an established relationship with a proven, I mean, they're all proven brands for the most part, right? But like, you already have a relationship with them. Like, that saves you a bunch of legalese and like, you know, just difficulty in that respect. So I think Warhammer 40k is pretty probable. I don't think we'd see, and I want to see Warhammer 40k probably. Yeah, Warhammer 40k I'd love to see. Warcraft I don't think would ever happen. Lord of the Rings could happen. Again, it's a very expensive license. I know Games Workshop does have some relationship with the Tolkien estate because they make Lord of the Rings miniatures, so that would be cool as well. Witcher, I wouldn't be too interested in seeing that. I don't know, because yeah, I feel like Lord of the Rings has like the armies, right, and the very army like kind of theme of things. So does Warhammer 40k. Game of Thrones would be pretty cool. Game of Thrones would be a really neat one because it would really become like a hybrid of historical and like, because it's very low fantasy. You don't have like a ton of magic, a ton of dragons until obviously, you know, a certain point, right? But I think Game of Thrones would be really badass. You know, having characters in your army like Sandor Clegane and stuff. Oh man, that'd be nice. Elder Scrolls, yeah, maybe all right. I like the Elder Scrolls. I played the games, but I think Warhammer 40k, Lord of the Rings, and Game of Thrones would be the best ones there. I don't know, getting back into Dawn. If I'm going to play older RTS games, Mr. Nyatek, I would probably do. They're probably mangled new names, so my apologies. I would probably play probably just Warcraft 3 or Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness. Going back to an old game that you've never played before is like a little bit tricky in terms of UI and just like having that passion. Having passion for like older games is more like of a nostalgia thing, and like having that like, yeah. So probably not, but maybe someday. Maybe I would do like Dawn of War 2 and mess around and do like a video or two, but regular content, I don't think so. We answered the question about Blood Bowl a little bit earlier, so hopefully you got to see that one, my friend. The thing on the doorstep, and it looks like a nice little chaos symbol there. Pretty cool stuff. The Beast of Bray. Do you think Norska will get any more love in Game 3? I think Norska could get something. Like, They only have 2 legendary lords. I do think they'll get a couple more legendary lords. I bet you Norska will at some point. I bet you they'll get like Valkia the Bloody and like one other character. Maybe Surtha Echo get added because CA is, they're team players. I think they would add him. So yeah, I think they'll get some legendary lords. Aside from that, maybe you'll get some like elements of like marks of chaos and things like in game 3 where you can like mark your chaos characters with different marks to give them different attributes. So yeah, maybe. I think they will though. I think they'll get more lords. What has been your greatest success and greatest mistake during Total War career? I would say the greatest success is just maybe being able to go full time on YouTube. I mean, it's not the best full time in the world financially, but it's good enough. So yeah, I would say that my greatest mistake probably is playing too much. Like playing too much. Like to the point where like it makes my hands worse and worse, and it kind of taxes my health a little bit. Yeah, it's not that big of a mistake, honestly. It's just part of the job. Well, a big mistake I made was not making guides early on because like I was always like a little bit afraid of sharing my opinions. I thought people would just not agree or just kind of like just dump on my opinions. But yeah, I should have made like guides earlier on and things like that. But honestly, it's not a big deal. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Who, in your opinion, is the most heavy metal character in the Warhammer universes or from Warcraft 3? We'll just do Warhammer for now. I think in Warhammer universes. Oh Jesus. Oh dude, there's so many to choose from. Well, we'll just do Warhammer Fantasy for the sake of simplicity so I can get to more questions. I think that in Warhammer Fantasy, Grombrindal's pretty heavy metal. He's like this ancient dwarven king who like had such just an erect grudge that he just like came back from life and he just sweeps in at the last second like this specter and just destroys the enemy of the dwarves. I think Wulfric the Wanderer is probably one of the most heavy metal. He literally has the voices of all 4 Chaos Gods. He sails around the world in a badass Viking ship and literally just goes fisticuffs and duels enemy champions. Like, you don't get much more heavy metal than that. I mean, there's so many, though. Warhammer is heavy metal. Like, that's what makes it cool. So, Wulfric, Grombrindal, probably off the top of that choices. Yeah. Grant Roper, if you had to pick one, would you rather be known as one of the best all-time competitors in Total War Warhammer or one of the best broadcasters of it? Well, I'm certainly not one of the best competitors. I'm good. I can hang and take games off some of the best players in the world, but I'm not going to consistently beat them. Like, if we played like a best of 10, I'd probably win like 3 or 4 and they would win 6 or 7, right? Against some of the top players. And maybe even worse, maybe 8 and 2, depending on the day. Yeah, I mean, a broadcaster probably. But again, like for me, it's really important to actually be good at the game. Like, or like competent, because I like to always play and be able to compete with the best players, because then when I give commentary, you guys giving credibility will know I know what I'm talking about. Whereas like, if I was casting and I didn't actually play the game and I'm just casting replays or, I just play every now and then and I'm trying to like give commentary and tactical feedback over someone else's gameplay who's much better than me. It's like kind of ridiculous, right? Because it's like, how do you, like, you're just parroting things. Like you got to know what you're talking about. So I've always been a fan of like casters who come from the background of their respective thing, like Daniel Cormier in the UFC, like commentating. I love watching him. And Joe Rogan, for example, that's why he's so good. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He has a martial arts background. He's like a good commentator. So having that background experience in something gives you credibility, which I think is super important. So anyways, bit of a rant there. Not directly Warhammer 40k, but did you ever try? I never tried 30k from Forge World. It's a little bit expensive to get into. Plus, I think the rules are a little bit convoluted compared to 40k. It's still really cool because the Horus Heresy is a badass time period, but personally, I prefer 40k from a gameplay perspective. Wenda. John Norris, show us your 40k army. I will, man. I have a camera, I have a tripod. I just have horrid lighting, so it's really bad. I've recorded like 2 videos, and it's just like you can barely see them because they're already Death Guard like green. They're hard to see. So yeah. Wondering what your favorite lord is and why? Karl Franz. Probably. Karl Franz is just that the Empire is like so awesome, and Karl Franz is just such a champion of the people. Like, he's just a regular dude. He's just badass from a lore perspective. Plus, he's also an ass kicker, like in the game. Like, he just gets in there with Golmaraz and gives people the business, and like can fight up against stronger monsters with it. It's so cool. Karl Franz. What is your? Oh, we're almost there. What is your standout Warhammer memory or experience? Oh man, I don't know. Probably just getting the game at first after having played Shogun, and I knew nothing about Warhammer really. I knew the basics when I started, but I just got the game. I remember going into a quick battle, getting Kolek and the Chaos Warriors, and just like, oh man, just that the first experience I think was the most standout thing for me. And then at that point realizing I wanted to record it, like have a channel and like do that. And honestly, as far as my channel goes, I was really inspired by gentlemen like Arif Carthage especially. I used to watch him like I used to watch him like at my office at work and just be like, oh man, I'd like this seems like so much fun to be able to like cast these games and stuff. So he really inspired me actually. He was the first channel I watched a lot in the Warhammer universe. So, or not Warhammer, Total War, excuse me. So I was like, the game came out. I watched him like all week at work on launch because he was putting out videos on launch, right? And I was like, oh, this is awesome. This looks like so much fun, the multiplayer, and I love competitive multiplayer. So I went and like upgraded my computer and just got a mic, and I was like, let's go, fisticuffs. But yeah, it was fun. So would you rather live in Warhammer Fantasy? Warhammer Fantasy, probably, yeah. E3 announcements, not really. I haven't seen anything. Unless there's like a big RTS title or like something in that universe, I'm not going to be super interested. I'm not a huge fan of like Call of Duty type games and like these RPG style games that are single player. I like competitive multiplayer. Favorite Chaos God is Nurgle. Because I love the aesthetic of the Death Guard and Nurgle demons, like having the horns and like just the badass like visages and like these like cloaks, like they're just so cool looking. Total War Warcraft, I don't think it's gonna happen. So hopefully that is it. Hopefully I got everyone's question and answered them amply. I will be doing another Q&A probably a month from now. I mean, it's not going to be super regular unless you guys really want it. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this Q&A, and see you guys next time. Cheers.